Now I'm delighted to introduce our guest this evening. Richard Tuttle's direct and seemingly simple deployment of objects and gestures reflects a careful attention to materials and experience. Rejecting the rationality and precision of minimalism, Tuttle embraces a handmade quality in his invention of forms that emphasize line, shape, color, and space as central concerns. He has resisted medium-specific designations for his work, employing the term drawing to encompass what could otherwise be termed sculpture, painting, collage, installation, and assemblage. Overturning traditional constraints of material, medium, and method, Tuttle's works sensitize viewers to their perceptions. His working process, in which one series begets the next, is united by a consistent quest to create objects that are expressions of their own totality. Since the 1970s, Tuttle has been the subject of numerous solo exhibitions worldwide. His most recent exhibition, A Distance from This, is currently on view at 125 Newbury in Tribeca through October 26. Past solo exhibitions include those at the Bard Graduate Center in New York, M. Woods in Beijing, the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C., the Kunstmuseum aan Zee in Ostend, Belgium, Museo de Arte de Lima in Peru, the Met Museum in New York, and Whitechapel and Tate Modern in London. Between 2005 and 2007, a retrospective exhibition organized by the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art traveled to 5 additional institutions, including the Whitney and the Museum of Contemporary Art in LA. His work is included in over 60 permanent collections, including LACMA, the Met, MoMA, Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, and the Dallas Museum of Art. Tuttle lives and works in New York and New Mexico. Now please join me in offering a very warm welcome to Richard.
Okay, I think I'll start out with this notion that I find, art schools try to teach us how to make art, and that's great, but they don't necessarily teach us what it's like to be an artist. And so when I visit an art school, I usually just try to focus on what it's like to be an artist, because in a way, each one is unique, individual, and we'll do it our own way. But in a sense, there's a general permission that you can explore little surprising things, and they always come as surprising because we somehow fall into a regularity where, I don't know, it works, but it doesn't work when you're doing creative work. So every step we take to being okay with the life of an artist. Let's see, I don't necessarily, but also first, thank you, Cara, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm so thrilled to be here because I've had a near-death experience in the last couple of days. I know the whole world looks much more cheery than it usually does. But also coming back to this building and its history, and also my previous talks here in symposium or individual or so on, where I've always sort of had a giggle at the side of my cheek because I'm for art. I'm for more art that you can have, the better. And a lot of times the art that's better for you is the harder for you to access. And so, walk that line. We go through the world, and we can learn to access more and different art every day, or not. But I'm somebody who chooses to, it's always in face of your prejudices or your your limitations or your comfort zones or stuff like that. And so all of that is no good for doing creative work. So I think there's a connection between what would I say, having art as much as you can in your life and doing creative work. But not every artist thinks that, and don't feel you have to think that either. Okay, and one of the my strongest, this issue of differences, where I express my differences to the degree where I was asked to leave by the back alley here, all of this room. And it was unforgettable to be in this. I didn't know New York had alleyways, or the kind that looked like, out of some Hollywood speakeasy movie. But anyway, the issues surrounding art have grown in complexity to such a degree that we don't, some of those differences that seem so important at one point really get in the way. Okay, and maybe that's my segue to this set of slides of work of my current show at the moment. We'll raise this up a bit. I'm going to do because, politically speaking, one of the things I'm going to be working for is to convince everybody in this room of the importance of the great, great, great importance we have as human beings for the picture. And I know that's a word that's been used sloppily, it's been used strictly, it's been used every kind of way. But the what I find, and I think there's a place in this for me to say something about who I think I am, that everything that I face, everything that I confront daily, could be so much better an experience if I had a picture to help me or to lead me. And when I think about contemporary art, or not even in that sense of contemporary, but in terms of art that we can have today, it includes ways we can live with, experience, know all the significant things in life, in our lives, and I've felt that way ever since I was a little boy, and learned, for example, I lived in a society where the major newspaper we have has a section called Art and Entertainment. I couldn't believe, somebody is talking about art as entertainment when already at kindergarten, first day of kindergarten, I knew it was the center of my life, and that to call it entertainment frankly, it made me more confusing than mad or, and needless to say, I feel even more strongly because we have given. All right, now I think I'm going to try to go to this place. This is a new place, and I would like to share with you how in creative work you charge forward there, into your 80s and 90s, absolutely every day starting from zero, and it gets hard. Well, I'm not going to say that, but I remember seeing Agnes Martin, my great friend, in their mid-80s, like asking a question, why did my mother say that in that tone, on that day? And I'm saying, what? Didn't we get over this in our 20s, sort of thing, But the artist, what I find, and a lot of the comfort level in our society is that an artist is made or might be born or made or something like that. And so we can go, flow through a lot of stuff, and that's actually something. If it's, have a warning that. Develop a good, fine case of catatonia or something. So when you start getting attacked because of not fitting in or not thinking like other people do, you can go into your catatonia and hide for a little while until the coast is clear. So in this audience, and it's, I don't know, really, I could be called a coward, but the fact that artists are born, and I don't even care if we limit that to, say, the last 75 years, because artists will appear in society in different ways for different reasons, at different, and this, my sense in the recent period is that you are born, you don't ask to be this, and even if somebody suggested to you, you would run as far as you could in the other direction, because anyway, my experience I wasn't aware. I was an artist until 4 years old. But before that, I can see photographs of my face and being under a constant barrage of being told whatever I was doing was not correct, whatever I was thinking, whatever plans I had were not going to go over in the family or this, and so. You emerge at a point where you might have an identity or form an identity, and you look around and say, your identity is basically already destroyed, and the idea of picking up the pieces and making something out of it or finding yourself in it is is hard, but it's I think it's a service job. We are here for other people. And that, I think, is told to us by the very fact that we didn't ask for this job. And like most jobs that are asked for, and anyway, like someone like myself would start canvassing people, situations, causes and effects, in the sense that there's a whole set of things that, if you posit, you can more or less figure out are going to come back a certain way, and little by little, you develop an idea of what, how, because one of this idea that you're born an artist is that there is no choice except to do your job, to complete what you were born to do. So, and then you start finding the things that are standing in the way of that, and the list is pretty long. I'm not saying this to be depressive, but to be hopefully encouraging, because when I found help, and I actually always knew there was somebody out there who I was looking for, like an artist who faced similar, because, I mean, part of being born an artist is having a kind of self, and when you have that kind of self, you can recognize that kind of self in other people, and whether you're conscious or of your identity or not, or because a lot of this stuff is progressive. You just have to learn. Oh, my wife is telling me I should stay on this. Is that true? Do people like my rambling? Okay. Oh, yeah. Maybe this that's another kind of segue, because I'm sure as a lot of you know in this room that it's such a vast and complex and interesting. There's no not interesting part of the story. But one of my projects as a born artist is having that I hate myself, and how do you deal with a realization of being born an artist, which you couldn't ask for anything more, and hating yourself? Like, my saddest day of the year is my birthday. It's the only day that wasn't happy. And I'm not the only artist like that. There are actually, I would say, a nice percentage of us. But one of the projects is to figure out a way through creative work to destroy the part of myself I don't like, and then see what happens, I guess. But anyway, these pieces are okay. Now I got some laughs. I promised somebody for that. But the one of my intuitions was that whatever it was I am as a creative person was connected to the Southwest, the landscape of the Southwest. And so I finally wound up moving there and working there and working along this project of destroying the part of myself I don't like. And it got to a point where I was thinking a lot about my body and what my body is and what my body is to all of us or to me. And I began to connect it to the earth, but not in the Western European way, but in the Native American way. And that and that, in fact, I was also seeing a psychiatrist at the time, and these events led to the idea that I was getting closer, stirring up or figuring out, because like the part of yourself you hate is so shrouded in darkness, and there's so many darknesses, how to tell one darkness from another darkness is almost impossible. And that's another reason why we have pictures or can use pictures, because to get through total darkness, veils of darkness like that, I'm sorry, you need a picture. And a good artist will make you a good picture and help you. And so anyway, in this process, you're getting a more intuitive, closer to the land, closer to relating to your body, carrying around your body the same way you would walk on the land. And you make friends that way. And that's like a strategy, a technique where as in this kind of friendship that's developing, you can put that in your work. You can viscerally see how and figure out how that can go into your work and make it a better picture, or at least a picture that's might be, values that are you've not met before in your life. So, anyway, in the middle of that, I had this notion that I should go to Guatemala, and this, I don't know, poor Guatemala and the Mayans, have not had a lot of respect. And as a matter of fact, they've just finished a 52-year-old civil war where most of what was left of their culture was destroyed. But nevertheless, there have been some archaeologists living in New Mexico who had worked before they were thrown out by the revolution about the Mayan world, where you don't live according to a calendar with 360 days. You live by recognizing days, like this day could be, there's the original calendar is like 22 stops, and then there are several hundred other ones, and they're, if you want to call it, priests are able to tell you what precise day this is. And I mean, I've been the day of the wind, and trying to cross a lake, and it being like just overwhelmingly impossible because of the wind. That kind of thing, which I love, because then it puts in question our cognition, and because if you're trying to make a picture, how can you be sure whatever that color you lay down or something is going to work in the same way for another person? It's about communication. So there are aspects and requirements for the artist, that are not. You're not going to find a system of cognition, or some kind of structure that's going to answer what you need, in my humble opinion, what you need to know in order to make a picture. So I'm not just positing this, importance of the picture, but then how much fun it is, and how even challenging it is, and how you can you can have the best day of your life by just positing one tiny subject or content. Let's see, I could do it so easily, like today. How? Okay. All right. Well, say, tomorrow I'm going to go home and I'm going to think about, well, in this room, because that's another part of our thinking, that we're beyond the information age, we're into an energetic age, and that the energy. Okay, thank you. That gave me a cue. I wanted to plug my buddy Hongyu Shin's exhibition. It's down on 79 Orchard Street, which is, I think it's one of the most interesting exhibitions in town, because you have three artists. One is Sungyu Lim, who is about my age and who's been working probably more idiosyncratically than I have over all these years. And then you have an Afro-American artist who's deceased, but who was blind, and he made sculpture, and it brings up, all of these questions about how important it is for us to represent. He wants to see his tongue, so he liked to, and what can he do to that effect? And so he goes underneath a house and drags out a hubcap or something, and perforates it and puts a rag, a sort of an oily rag, where the mouth, the tongue should be coming out of the mouth, and you look at it and you that's like, I've never seen my tongue, that looks more like my tongue than I could imagine. If I looked at my tongue, that looks more like my tongue, and so the three artists in this show are all extreme, focused on what can come through your eyes, what can is available to us. So anyway, and show some images. She wants images. I hate images, but anyway. Okay, so I know I did that. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is one of the last pieces. And I think, what is it? I think, what is it? It's a, there's an absence here that you could say the piece sits in an absence. I need to get some other stuff off my chest before going into this. This yeah, okay, and part of that I think is the main part is this a learning that there are sites that are currently in what we call Guatemala that in human history have been the other end of a axis that you might say begins in New Mexico, and this indeed my sense that the future, the direction of the world is toward north-south energy, away from east-west energy, is corroborated by, so all of these pieces are, you could say, are experientially at least, because this connection, the significance, you might say, and I'm going to make a little distinction here because I'm really set my heels in against power, all these issues of power, and I was offer strength as a replacement, because I noticed that every time strength wins over power, and that you're, as an artist, you should base your work in strength and not in power, not in some power structure, and so. All right, now I think maybe I can jump from that notion of the north-south axis. And we know in the world, from just scanning the world, that the north-south axis has attributes that are recognizable. One of the biggest ones is textiles. There aren't many of these north-south axes in the world, certainly the Rockies, and which is one of the reasons I'm living in New Mexico, is to be close to the north-south axis. But it's also would be the one that would be appropriate to the New Mexico, Guatemala energy there. So all of these pieces, you could say, are the joy of being able to make something that feels to one person on Earth, if no more, that this has landed on this ancient but traditional north-south axis. That it's produced. You can't help but admit it, that this day keeping, or the way the Mayans have. I don't know. I hope we're broad-minded enough to understand that, look around the room, look around New York, we're just seeing people who more or less figured out a certain way to live. And they're by no means is the only way to live. And as far as art is concerned, or human creative work, it's certainly part of it has to be either improving or finding a better way to live. And certainly, I think a lot of the problems we're facing at the moment, like certainly one of the big problems is we need to cement a horizontality in our society that all of us can draw from to benefit of the species in general. This is not a period. I mean, in a way, it's kind of funny to me, or even deeply funny, because this podium represents a kind of old-fashioned idea where we're looking for the star, or we're looking for somebody who did it better, or the next Picasso, or something like that. And I'm consciously embarrassed standing up here, even hinting that, because I always figured that this was a life commitment, and so I checked out, what's my expected span of life, and what kinds of confrontations, bumps in the road, and so on I expect. And I was born in that period, that what do you call it, a kind of enlightenment period where everybody was looking for the next genius or the best or the this or the that. But I knew that, we were going to go into a kind of romantic period where we were, you could say, again, for us, I don't want to be caught. Part of making a picture is giving back, and I don't want anybody to tell me I can't give back as much as I can give back. And so someone to come along, and just because I was born in the mid-20th century and I'm living in the mid-21st century, that I can't, however it is I was formed, is not going to be approved, or I can't contribute, I can't give as much as I can in the 21st century as I could in the 20th century. I think that's ridiculous. Anyway, so these guys are. I just thought of this moment that they are like testaments. If you could. All right, okay. Let me, because one of the, I already struggled with this problem of if you're born in the East-West energetics, how do you get to the North-South energetics? And in this lifetime, in your own lifetime. And it was one of the most rewarding investigations I've ever made. And it came about very mysteriously because a scientist from Los Alamos had written a paper that because we made an exhibition in a museum where every Wednesday we would change it, and we would try to make the rooms and the whole exhibition look more like north-south energy than east-west energy. And so there was a bunch of us in there, and one of the people had read this piece from the scientist from Los Alamos who said that color is not something we are taught in kind of in objectively or naming kind of way. It's something we learn on our mother's knee. So when she says blue, for the rest of there's something that goes on in your brain for the rest of your life. You whenever you get near that, or whenever you have certain emotions, you begin like trying to find that blue. And consequently, I wrote this book, which I actually believe that you never see the same color twice. And tell that to the art supply stores. They and then lo and behold, I learned that this is actually a long-standing argument between the scientific community and the artist community, because science at a certain foundational level is committed to repetition. So of course they have to believe colors repeat, but the artistic community, which is closer to the humanistic community, is not committed to that. And I don't know about the rest of you in this room, but I'm also for artists suffering less, and you can get mad like how much I've had to suffer. People telling me the color repeats, when I know in my heart I was born this thing which knows color never repeats. I mean, and you have to defend yourself, because you don't want to make an art that's a defense. Art, you should be beyond those kinds of strategies when you create. There should be that degree of freedom in your creativity, that you're not in a defensive mode. Boy, I should take that for my own lesson. Anyway, so now. And one thing I'm going to say here, I'm going to find this delicious, is for this 26 pieces, I did not acquire one material to make them. They were all brought from in my studio, and that's another. I mean, I don't know how this kind of stuff is recorded, but as say, if we wanted to earlier in the evening, we could have said, oh, well, we're just going to talk about composition, the issues of composition, and how do artists compose, or how do poets compose, how do musicians compose. It's a really fascinating subject, and you could even narrow in on that and say, we've all experienced a certain gift of composition that happens very infrequently, and that we, I don't know, sort of one of my favorite ways of saying about creative work is that creative work happens when the God enters, and you can just do more than you can in another condition, and also I find, especially with these, because there's the confidence of having had that experience in Guatemala, that I can give more authority to the God and feel okay not not participating. And that works for me because I think the number one hardest job of the artist is to do nothing. Again, in society where you're constantly barraged, about you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. With creative work, you should do nothing. You should do absolutely nothing. It'll take. It can do itself. It can do itself better than you can, and it will if you allow it. But if you don't allow it, and I think it begin a discipline that starts pretty early in our lives, where because it's a tiny step by tiny step. I'm a Eagle Scout, I'm like, pallbearer in church. I'm like, whatever, slave you want to wipe your feet with, that's me, sort of. And so for me to say, hey, I'm not going to do that, I'm just not going to do that. And I'm going to wait for inspiration. Okay, so now some. We all have struggled with images of. This is they're not. They could be mind twisters, but I really believe they're not. Like that little horizontal in the upper left-hand corner is just taking advantage of a line that was previously drawn on this chipboard, and also the as a maker, it's delicious to not be under pressure of I think the only pressure was like that, was like doing. As you can see that the shapes, they can vary. Everything can vary, but in this one, because they all, I'm sorry or not sorry to say that I've always had a philosophical bent, or could say a metaphysical bent, and I read philosophy, and philosophers I admire seem to understand art a little bit, and then they say that they find in philosophy you cannot say everything that you necessarily want to say, but in the visual world, in the vocabulary, you could say you can. And so I think I indulge that part. For example, as a philosophical cue, because I think part of picture making is there's a relationship, a trust relationship with the viewer that you have to make, and that you have to show. And this is this is a lot of fun in it for me, because since the Renaissance, at least, there's been a kind of point system, and the artists who get the points are the ones who try something difficult, that can be assessed difficult. So, like this piece, which say, if it were made by the person who hates themselves, it would be resolved with as many art, like globally and for centuries, and by a some pictorial entity that would rest at the bottom of it, so where that shadow line is. But even in this slide, and I know it takes a lot of imagination, and but if you look at the quality of that line at the bottom, you see it's almost saying to you, like, I don't need to be here. I'm not necessary. I'm not part of the scene, because what's happened is that element plus has gone to the top, and that structure above, and it happens to be resting above two nails, which are driven through holes in the board, and then this block with a thin sheet of white sprayed metal sits up there. The label in this, but that's not going to complain. It's like, what is it? Maybe that's referring back to why, an artist and a collector, or the same brain would come out, because, how much art have you absorbed by the time you're 83 years old, and siphoned it and filtered it and so on, so that you could do that kind of flip, and this is what I say about when the God enters, because I am not capable of doing something like that, because if I did it, and you can even see that I'm not pretending I'm something I'm not, but those kinds of wobbly lines, all that, everything would absolutely, under ordinary conditions, which is another way of saying non-pictorial conditions, because by the time you're looking at this, you already have accepted a kind of an envelope of the pictorial, and which you may like or not like, or reject, or do whatever you like, and it's up to you. But what I'm going to try to say is that even like cartoonly, or like on a basic linear form relationship, this whole apparatus in here should spin, should be brought into emotion, almost like that is a weather vane. But just as you get this information that it should be functioning like a weather vane and it should be spinning, it stops, and that's, and one of the things that I like about this piece the most is I'm saying, okay, even granted, this is a case, and it's a large part of the pictorial, where you are saying that I know the entire world is in motion. I am in motion, like the time is in, the event, the communication, everything is in motion, but still I'm interested in something that stopped. I don't know why that should be. I know other people have been interested in that. But I'm not going to rest at saying this is stopped and accept that. I'm going to ask why. And this piece for me, which is, because I guess that's an old-fashioned side, but if I make something and offer it to another human being, I intend that they could look at this for the rest of their life, and never get tired of it, and always get something out of it. I mean, that's my intention. The idea that something's hanging on a gallery wall for a period is fine, but and maybe I just answered my own thing, that the reason I can be interested in a stop is because I'm really talking about eternity, and what's more of a stop, what's less of a stop than eternity, and I want to be in that place, where I don't know. It's that and someone said recently that when they looked at these pieces, they said two things. One, that they feel they can live, and that pieces give other people something to do, to take, to receive, to change, and then the other part was that that there's a future. We have a future, and both of those are what to me it's not that creativity tells us that, is that creativity doesn't tell us anything except that. And I just want to go on record saying here, Richard thinks that eternity doesn't say anything except that we will be here forever. I don't need, what. So anyway, now I feel I've really tested your patience too much. But do we have are there any questions or?
Thank you, Richard. Yes, please raise your hand, and I'll bring the microphone to you.
Hi, how's it going? I have a bit of a twofer. The first one being, you used the word catatomy or catatomy maybe once or twice. I was hoping you could define that.
Okay.
And then the second question, I'm curious about kind of what informs your work. Would you happen to have like a favorite drug?
A drug. Yeah. Art is my favorite drug. I've experimented. There's no drug that can take me where art can take me. Oh, sorry. No, I was just about to be a little too precise, but no, I've experimented with drugs, and like this one goes there, and that one goes there and there, and none of them go touch at all, or I mean, like in a. I don't know if any of you have studied forms of human creativity, because various societies have thought about us, in terms of our creative powers and what they are, how they come, and so on. There's nothing definitive. Nobody's ever figured it out, but the Kundalini yoga is one of my favorites, where like we have at the base of our spine a little 3.5 curved snake that will periodically rush up our spine, and we have two channels there. There's one where it will illuminate us to levels that are not like any other thing any has ever recorded, but if it goes up this side of the spine, it will kill you, and part of the art or discipline is making sure it doesn't kill you. I think that's. Oh, and I didn't say the catatonic. That's actually a kind of a favorite. I've been analyzed as catatonic, but this happened when I was faced with figuring a way how to get out of the war with an honorary discharge, and part of that actually, because this is in a way this is the scariest part of the evening, but you can. I'm all for being demanding. I love it, when poets and musicians, and because whatever you do or whatever. I mean, I'm sick right now. I almost died because I overdid it, But I'll go right back tomorrow and I'll do it again, because that's just to taste a thought, that will potentially 10 generations from now or so on turn into something, so special for us, because I mean that question of the survival of the species is never far from my mind, and that how we think, and how we write and how we create, but especially that how. Okay, and that gives me a chance to dip into that. My personal belief is that creativity is actually the first invention of human Homo sapiens. Let's say, I'm sure their Neanderthals were in there too, and so on. But anyway, that you. Like even the immune system, which a lot of people, like maybe the scientific community, says, that was the first thing that was invented to make us, because we needed something to protect us from all our enemies. But I say art was the first because the immune system needed something to protect. and I find over and over again I'm shocked how I'm not wrong. And so when you go about creative work, okay, that's another I thought potentially funny thing to say this evening, because yes, I'm a New York artist, and I love New York, and I love the period that we've been working through, and the things that have happened, and so on. But I'd be a fool if I didn't see all that art can do. And one of the things that is near and dear to my heart is conservation. Is having available, but also, just the thickness, the complexity of our civilization. See, this is this other case where a picture is supposed to help us with some of these big issues, you know, that we have. And like one of the big issues is how can we maintain all the art benefit that our ancestors have bestowed upon us in such a rapidly moving and, you know, you might say chaotic. But I think, for example, one way to look at a picture like that is just as a system of our art memory. You know? And I know this is a big stretch for a lot of people, and because in my work, I'm, you could say, in a corner, or because when I make something, I want to feel it's like 1,000% important to me. There's nothing else in the universe or any place that is as important as what I'm doing. And yet at that very same moment, I wanted it to look nonchalant, like I don't care, you know, at all. And for some reason, you know, it's like a tightrope walk. I just need to be, and like I'll tease myself and say, "Oh, Richard, you know, won't you do something this time that looks like you care?" Something like that. But it's I don't know, for someone, because then also I think, and I'm going to advocate this too, as we get older, there are certain enjoyments that increase and increase. And for example, you know, what might happen to this in the future, you know, okay, I have a strong influence from Japan. I lived there a bunch of years, and I collect a potter named Rosanjin, who is great. And I have a dish of his, and I've prepared some steaming food on it and walked across the room and heard this crack like that. And I just like couldn't bear the fact that I'd broken his plate. I went back and with my chopsticks very slowly ate and looking for this crack, you know, which thank God never appeared. But that gave me an idea that that's the kind of artist I really want to be, as far as, you know, permanence, longevity. What, you know, I want my work of mine to be there just as much as that plate was there after I heard the crack, you know, and so that, you know, but again, this is to me real New York, where artists, there's a certain wiggle room that it helps creativity. And so you know, and that's an analogous to, you know, this famous Keats negative emotion, or the negative culpability, where you find a lot of creativity in the least almost definably opposite place where you could have to find it. And I think that's another, for a piece like this. With the gallery, I very often just look at this piece, and I think it is that I've achieved, you know, after 80 years or something, to negative culpability, you know, that all these elements, just simple black, white in there, are assembled so that they are not like a positive force, but as soon as you look, as soon as you engage, as soon as your eye runs from one to another, something starts, you know, and there's a kind of an energy that comes out of that. And I think for me, pictures are, you don't want them to be finished. You want them to be ready for use. And that's a big difference between most of the things we see in museums and galleries and so on. So this is a kind of show where you just get to see things that are ready for use. And anyway, okay. So probably we're close to. Oh,
Maybe one more question.
yeah.
Thank you so much for your talk. I was wondering, I think you sort of got to it as well at the end there, but I was wondering if you could talk more about the stop, the idea of you're interested in the stop.
Stop, yeah.
And how that connected to eternity. There's something really interesting that I was just wanting to hear more about.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, oddly enough, and that's why I like to come to these things, is creating ideas that suddenly fall into place. That might have been floating around a bit, but this idea of eternity and stop, because I don't know what bad side that is of my sympathy, but I came to New York, and it was a period when pop and op and a lot of those tailing isms came along. Oh, and I actually wanted to throw that out as a joke earlier too, but I think a significance that perhaps is valuable to a lot of us that we haven't necessarily picked up is that this period of like the commencement of my work, so we're talking 63, 4, something like that, is actually the end of isms. There are no isms after that. And that in turn is a place where we don't need whatever the ism supplied us, a kind of finality, something like that, and there, I guess being a sensualist, that I always look for a juicy answer. It might not be the most correct, but what strikes me is that at this end of isms, you don't need a finality, the kind of finality you had with isms, but you do need some notion of complete, of totality. And I picked up cloth as a material and worked through shapes and so on, and finally got to this point where there were just 8 sides and 8 points to a piece of cloth that was more or less as big as you are, and that as art worked because you were given an object, in front of you, that you could see everything, every thread, every, color change, every mistake, every, but it was a real composition because there was some center, there had to be some center there, but it was always in relation to those 8 points and those 8 sides. And so, it was amazing how the human eye could read this complexity, but also those pieces didn't have a top or a bottom or a front. So even though you had one that you would look at as your picture, it your own mind could multiply almost like faster than you ever experienced how many pictures were available to you like that. So in that sense, it was a stop, but it was a stop that was so dynamic. You know, like the art, and I think that's an important part of art is asking a question, or a good question. You know, the better the question, the better the art, sort of thing. But there, you could, and then on another level, I realized they worked because you could see one side, and even though you could know the other side, nothing prevented you from knowing the other side, but you couldn't see it. You know? And so that led me to the other side of the world. You know, it was like as if the piece of canvas was represented this side of the world, and then I went to Japan and actually tried to live among the Ainu and Hokkaido for a year, and just to try to understand what the and I don't know, maybe that's a little bit interesting because you're clearly seeing somebody who already somehow felt art was this big totality that they needed to, they could only benefit from learning more and more. And in fact, because the gods gave me this gallery, Betty Parsons gallery, which was the gallery of Rothko and Newman and Reinhardt and all of them, and and even though the times had changed to the pop and the other isms, but I felt that Abek's generation reached a height in expression, in a human expression, you know, that of opening the possibility to us that we could find things that were important to us and make or form in a way which could be shared, you know, I'm going to say put in the public glue that where art is supposed to be found. It's not supposed to be left inside us, you know, and so I came back from that period of and this is a sort of a killer thing, because one of the points I want to make is how organic and how natural art really is, and how it's always a great day when you see yourself as an instrument, you know, for something that art wants to happen. And this period when I talk about these octagonals, and I went through the cloth ones, and then there were the paper ones, 12 paper ones, and then there were 12 wire outline ones. That all took like 4-5 years, something like that, and that my daughter laughs when I say you know, I would take a month to make one of these octagonal sheets of paper, and it would usually happen on the full sun on the night of the full moon, something like that, where everything was peaked. And this is, I think, also connected with I don't like the word expression in the sense, but being able to this was a bit of a change for me too. I mean, it's one thing if you can say what life is for you. It's another thing if you can't say what life is for you. You know, and I consider it a real tragedy if somebody, you know, cannot say what life is for them. You know, and yeah, I'll go out the end of the, because there's tons and tons of sophisticated people out there who laugh at people who explore the self as a resource for their art. But I am not one of them, because it's just those things which you cannot say that life means to you, that are the things that are going to be hidden away, and they'll be hidden away for the rest of your life, you know, and you'll be basically crippled. And that art in its true form, and which as I said before, it's a form directly related to the glue that's between us, you know, it's a societal glue, that if it's not exploring that, opening that, showing us that, even belittling us by its importance, you know, you're on the wrong track, as far as I'm concerned. Now's the time to get off the stage.
Thank you, Richard.